why it's really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, to where you can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, welcome to this here episode number 30 of the DGen Roundtables Book Club. Today we're going to be covering a fantastic book called The Ideal Team Player. It is written by Patrick Lencioni, or Pat Lencioni, I believe is the way that he pronounces his name, as I heard on his little TED Talk, which we got a little clip of that later that we're going to show to you. But we're going to be talking about basically the three things that make for a person to be a fantastic person to be around in the workplace, to be around at home, to be around hanging out with friends, doing anything where you need some sort of teamwork, some sort of effort. A big part of life is teamwork, as we all know. And so if we want to be on lots of successful teams and do great things, then it behooves us to be ideal team players. Joining me tonight, I have a fantastic panel of the usual suspects. You guys already know we've got Mrs. McGettit, our fantastic producer. We've got Farmer Jay, our local electrician and philosopher extraordinaire, and then we have Mr. Nate McGettit, the ascending man who is ascending up in this crypto world. And also you have me, your fantastic host, Mr. Will Stevenson. Ladies and gentlemen of the panel, would you guys mind, now that I've given you a brief introduction, would you mind telling me what's new and exciting with you, and what were your thoughts on this book, The Ideal Team Player? Starting with my fantastic host and our producer, Mrs. McGettit. What's up and what'd you think?
Hello, I am Mrs. What did you say earlier? Spaghetto or something? It sounds like spaghetti sauce.
I was combining all the words. Mrs. Spaghetto.
Well, that's my new name now. I'm going to take that on. I'm kidding. I thought this book was wonderful. I really, really enjoyed it. One thing that I've been struggling with recently with some of the other books that we've been doing is they jump straight into like all this facts and all this knowledge, and then they just like toss it all on you, and I'm just like, oh, okay, that's a little overwhelming and a little bit harder for me to absorb. I really love the ones that do like stories, and this one did a really good job of having a very in-depth and easy to follow and just detailed story that went along with all the points he made like in the second half of the book. So this book was wonderful in my opinion, and I definitely think it's a very good read for anybody who wants to learn how to just work better with people, or to what to look for when you're trying to build a team if you're in that kind of a position.
100% agree. And I will say that I highly recommend this book to everyone. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter if you already know this stuff. Doesn't matter if you're at the 1 hour mark or the 10,000 hour mark of mastery. This book has got some fantastic philosophies and concepts in it. And it's good just to like refresh yourself on like the like when you educate yourself on the same thing over and over again. There's a word for that, and I totally forgot it. But moving on from that, Mr. Farmer Jay, what's new and exciting with you, bro? And what did you think about the book?
Well, nothing new and exciting yet. Other than not much. Other than I did find. Oh, thank you. I actually let it grow a little longer than usual. That's new. That's new. It's
yep. You look good, bro.
I have an extra 1/8 of an inch up there. All the hair still there so far.
Yep. More than can be said about me, my friend. All gone.
It's all right. It's all right. You make it look good. I got like a lopsided head. If I shave, it looks weird. So I need my hair. I thought the book was kind of interesting. I think like Miss McGettit said, it uses stories to teach. I always like when there's stories when it's trying to teach you like virtues and like behind stories, like you can learn so many lessons instead of being boring and bland. There's actually a story, but it's trying to teach lessons behind it. Like, what was it? The humble, hungry, and smart. The only one of those I am is hungry, always hungry.
No,
But
absolutely. I agree with that. That was kind of interesting because when I first got into the book, it's like it just jumps directly into a story. And I was like, okay, but the book is supposed to be about these things, right? These particular things. And I started noting, wait a minute, all the different examples of the people in this story is literally just characters of those examples that they describe in the book, right? The attributes. And I started noticing, hey, wait a minute, this whole story is literally just the entire book itself, only in a practical sense, So no, that was a lot of fun. But this book is incredibly vital, I would say, incredibly valuable for any team that's trying to figure out, how can we work best together? Because you are always going to have those people, and I'd say the majority of people just generally in the workplace is 2 out of the 3 and maybe severely lacking in one of those categories. And see, the thing is that you never really, when you're lacking one of those things, you never really see it, you know, because it's kind of like seeing the forest from the trees. So you need other people to come in and be like, hey, you're missing one of these things. And you need that openness, you need openness to be able to be like, hey, I am missing that. So before we get into it, though, I will go ahead and throw it back over to our lovely host to do what he does best, frankly.
Excellent. All right. So so good point, Nate. Before we get into the topics of the book, it's time to acknowledge these fantastic audience members that you guys see so wonderfully chilling out over here. Well, actually, you guys are the audience members. We're just some assholes on the internet talking about our feelings. Mrs. Producer, would you mind go ahead and pulling up Mr. Kenturian54X's first comment of the evening? Good afternoon, DGens. Good afternoon to you too, good sir. Glad to see you. Always happy to have you on the show with us. Chilling in the comments and probably baling some hay, or maybe cutting down some trees or splitting some fire, doing farmer things out there in the real world, like a real person instead of dawdling around on the internet like a bunch of silly goofballs. But we're here to have fun and explore some cool concepts and ideas, and we're glad that you're here with us on the way. Up next, we've got Mr. Fast Abdul asking, are there any sexy parts in this book? And I would have to say yes. The entire book is sexy to the mind. This is like that sapio file or whatever it is that you see on all these weird little like people talking about like, oh, I'm a demigodophile, or oh, I'm a panophile, or I'm a whatever the hell a file. This has got all these fantastic ideas, and if you think ideas are sexy, and if you think people being good team players is sexy, then yes, this entire book is sexy. As far as lewd parts, well, I guess you're just gonna have to read it and find out there, Mr. Fast Abdul. I'm not gonna give away any of Mr. Lencioni's fantastic and smutty secrets that he might have hidden deep within these pages. But
There's a fourth sector that
oh
you
man,
may
yeah.
not know.
When you get to the bonus part of the audiobook, well, I guess we'll save that. We'll save that for the folks who actually go out and spend the money to buy it. But anyways, that does it for our chat shoutouts. Thank you for joining us. Those of you guys who are watching us live and who are watching us on the replay, we greatly appreciate y'all hanging out and chilling with us. Ladies and gentlemen of the panel, though, it's time for me to do a quick little synopsis of the book, and then as I'm doing the synopsis, I kind of want you guys to think about the first question of the night, which is we're going to basically I'm going to do the little exercise that Patrick encourages people to do with their friends, and I'm going to ask you to rank yourself like from strongest thing to least strongest thing. So it's like, if you think that your strongest is the humble, then that would be your top one. If you think your strongest is hungry, or if you think it's smart, that would be first. We're basically going to rank it from like most powerful to least powerful, because I have a feeling that like since we're all working together pretty well here as a team on the DGen Roundtable and doing cool things, like we're all some sort of level of ideal team player, but obviously everyone in the world has things that they need to work on. So if you guys don't mind sharing, that's going to be my first question. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and read a ChatGPT summary of this fantastic book. So let me go ahead and pull up my notes here, which I have ready. All right. So, The Ideal Team Player, How to Recognize and Cultivate the 3 Essential Virtues by Patrick Lencioni explores what makes an ideal team player and how organizations can develop these traits in their employees. This book revolves around 3 essential virtues. 1, humble. Humility is the most important virtue. Humble people lack excessive egos or concerns about status, and they are quick to point out contributions of others and slow to seek attention for their own credit. They share credit and emphasize team over self and define success collectively rather than as an individual. The second trait is hungry. Hungry people are always looking for more. They are self motivated and diligent. They're ambitious. They constantly think about the next step and the next opportunity. They work hard and are passionate about their work, often going above and beyond the call of duty. And then the third trait is smart. Smart isn't about intellectual intelligence, but rather about being people smart. So the ability to network and read people. Smart people have common sense about people. They know how to say and do the right things in interpersonal situations, and they are good listeners and have strong interpersonal skills. So you guys had mentioned earlier that the book uses a story to kind of like crack off into the concepts and describe these three traits: the humble, hungry, and smart, and how they got to it and stuff. And I will say that the first time I listened to the book, the story was pretty entertaining and I enjoyed it. But then like on listen 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, I was like, okay, I'm not listening to this story anymore. I'm skipping straight to the juice so that way I can take good notes as a good host. And I'm going to ignore the story part. So like from an educational perspective, when you're re-listening to the book, I will say that it was pretty helpful to like skip to the oh shoot, what was it? It was like chapter 7. It doesn't matter what the chapter number was. But like after the story was over and they talk about all the fallout of like what happens with people that, you know, they decided to work on these traits or they didn't work on these traits, if they stayed or they went or did whatever. Exploring the concepts behind it was super duper helpful, and I find that really easy. And like after the story is about 60% of the book, so like 30%, the meat and potatoes is like packed in the end of the book there. And so basically what he covers during that part is he provides practical advice on how to apply these three concepts in real world scenarios, basically for interviewing and hiring, for assessing current employees, and for developing team members. That's more or less what the thing is. And we're going to dive into a little bit more of the structures of those later if we have time. And other than that, we're just going to have some fantastic conversation. So that's the basic synopsis of the book as written by ChatGPT, my fabulous my fabulous work doer. And it was actually pretty close. I went to the website called Reading Graphics where they did another little synopsis, and ChatGPT basically copied word for word almost, or at least concept for concept, the official book summary thing. And they have some cool infographics that I'm going to pull up later. But my question for the panel, as I had mentioned earlier, what do you guys think is your strongest trait, and then like your second strongest, and then your least strongest of the three? I'll go ahead and start off since I'm the host and I'm asking you guys to do a difficult thing. I will say that my strongest one is probably people smarts, and then after that, I think humility, and then the thing that I'm the least good at is the hunger one. I'm not incredibly hardworking and ambitious. That's like my least favorite thing is doing work. I'm incredibly lazy. I like to hang out and I like to surf around and I like to fuck off and have a good time. Much to the chagrin of my brother, who is not here right now. Sam's an incredibly hard worker, so he's like the exact opposite in that one. Shout out to Sam wherever you're at. I think he's up working on some houses right now. But those are how I think my three skills rate is. I think that people smarts is my highest one, and then after that is humility, and then after that is ambition and stuff. Who would like to go next?
Oh, I would like to go because I think I'm the exact opposite of you.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm extremely high in hunger, and then all my other ones are kind of like low. But after some work that I've actually been doing this year and 2023, the humble and then people skills. I suck with people.
That's okay. Bro, we're like the perfect yin yang then, man.
Literally perfect opposites.
Mm-hmm. I like it. And then humility is just right there in the middle. Farmer Jay, do you have an order for these three? What's your strongest one, you think?
I am equally bad at all of them.
Equally bad at all? I don't know about that, my dude.
Like me personally, like I'm not very like you said, I'm not very hungry or motivated.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm at work, like if there's a lot of stuff that needs to get done, as long as it takes to get done, I'll do it. But like I'm not active.
Beyond, though.
Yeah. Oh, no, because if I stay there longer, they'll give me a bigger paycheck. But probably being humble on the job side is something I am not.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
I am probably loud, boisterous, and obnoxious. Then again, that's probably just around like my coworkers and stuff. But other than that, like around like people that are in charge and stuff, I just kind of stay quiet and to myself. But I mainly work construction, so
Mhm.
uh,
Well, that might be a really strong interpersonal then, if you think about it that way, because
yeah,
not to shake the boat with your bosses, which I'm really bad at, by the way. And you know that when you're around a group of your friends, you can have a really good time, and I'm sure they like you. So
I
that sounds
yeah.
like you're best.
I would like to offer comment whenever you're finished with your thought as well,
Go
Farmer
ahead,
Jay.
go
Because
ahead.
I've hung out with you in real life. For those in the audience who don't know, I've hung out with Farmer Jay, and I will say, like, he is an incredibly smart man when it comes to dealing with people. And like I was like taking mental notes as we were sitting in the car hanging out. It was me, my brother Sam, Malik Dartier, for those of you who know him, and Farmer Jay. We were all hanging out, having fun, chilling at the casinos. I think we were smoking cigars and shit. It was a good time. But so we were hanging out, and I was taking notes about like how Farmer Jay describes interacting with people, and I was like, damn, I got some shit to learn with this dude. So you are people smart, and I
Well,
will say that humility is probably. I think I agree that humility is probably your strongest one, because you are like you're being pretty humble right now. I would say in your description, and you are pretty good at people smarts. I don't know much about your professional life, but I will say that like when you're hanging out with the bros, man, like you're there to hang out. You're doing the thing that's getting done.
absolutely. Like
Yeah.
if you're just like you said, kind of being like that people smart kind of thing, like understanding the situation that you're in
Uh-huh.
and like behaving as such. Like like if you're just goofing around, okay, it's time to goof around. But
Yeah.
when it comes time to do like when you need when things need to get done, then you need to set that aside and actually concentrate on what needs to get done.
Yeah.
Uh but for the most part, like my kind of works is like if we don't work as a team, the stuff's not getting done.
Oh yeah.
If we're pulling wire and it's like a 5-man wire pulling crew, like we all need to work together or
Mhm.
else it's not gonna happen.
Now, when you say pulling wire, you're talking about like the electric, like the things that power everything has to go through all the conduit, and there's
Yeah.
like a little rope that you tug on.
Uh Depends on the wire. There's some wire that's very particularly heavy as hell.
Okay.
Like you have to set
That's
it
the
up.
underground wiring, right? Goes like
Some
under.
yeah, some of it most of it goes underground. So like when you're doing this stuff, like a lot of people don't see your work because at the end of the day they just see the end product, but
Yeah.
they don't see everything that gets buried under. So you usually so like when you pull these big wires, like you have to set it on forklifts, on spindles, and you're not going to pull it by hand. You have to use mechanical assistance like a tuggle, forklifts, and to get all that stuff in. So you got to set it up properly and
Yeah.
make sure that the whole thing's going smoothly. And like I said, communication is very important because there's a problem with the line, or you start getting tension, you have to immediately stop, or else you risk on damaging like the stuff that's already underground, buried in conduit, and you have to reset. So yeah,
Yeah.
so like I understand the importance of teamwork when you're doing certain tasks. But me preferably, I usually like when I'm on task where I have to work alone.
Yeah. I think I am a little bit I'm pretty similar when it comes to a lot of work things. Working alone is something that I enjoy. And it doesn't mean that like, you and I can't work on teams, but like there's something to be said about having preference for being subject matter expert on the thing at hand. Mrs. McGettit, I want to toss it over to you. What do you think what do you think is your strongest of the three?
I think for me personally, it would be humble. I tend not to like having a spotlight.
Mhm.
And then second is going to be smart, and then third would be hungry. I am very rarely the type who wants to heavily chase for more and more of anything. Not that I don't want to, improve, but when it comes to ambition, like within a job, I'm more of the follower, not necessarily the person who's chasing down promotions and things like that.
Okay. Interesting. So we're all a little bit of a smorgasbord of everything here. Is any one of us I don't think any one of us has humble as the bottom trait. It's all either hunger or um oh shoot. Hunger or smarts. That's the one. So that's pretty good. We don't have to worry. We don't have to worry about diagnosing the humility here. We're all super duper humble, and we think about.
Well, I've had to learn that one. To be truthful, I feel like not until trying to improve myself in the past year, I think I've been just straight up a bulldozer. Just get out of my way, let me do my thing.
Yeah, me personally, like I like to kind of stay out the way, and like there's somebody else in charge of doing it. But if I feel like somebody's just doesn't know what the hell they're doing, I just get the fuck out of my way here. I'm gonna take over and get this part of the job done. But if somebody knows what they're doing, I usually just I usually just like if there's somebody on the job with a lot more experience or that they know what they're doing, it's like okay, like what do you have in mind? But if I'm there and like it seems like nobody knows what the hell they're doing, it's like move out of the way. We're gonna do this. This is what we're gonna do. You go set up over there. You go over there. But it all just depends on the situation. But I
See,
rather
that sounds
not.
like competence.
Yeah.
Competence because you know your job, and that's competence, right?
Yeah. To an extent, not just after being so long in the trade. It's like when somebody doesn't know what the hell they're doing, it's like get the hell out of my way.
Have you guys ever? I think I've been pretty blessed in my professional career, with being in the Marine Corps, and then also like this ironworking trade that I'm in, the TV tower stuff. I've been super lucky in being around a lot of, like, I don't know if I would describe them all as ideal team players, but a lot of them are like pretty close to that. There have definitely been some like drags and some people that are just like, what did they call them in the book? They called them jackasses, I think, during the story parts.
Yeah, Bobby, he loves saying jackasses.
Yeah, those fucking jackasses in the story. Have you guys ever had to deal with a jackass that like got turned into a not jackass, or have you ever? I guess is there a story of hope on the horizon that you guys have experienced, or has most people that you've seen as ideal team or not, like the jackasses, have they stayed that way, or did they get fired, or did they leave? Like, what's your experience? What would you say if you had to put a percentage to it, right? What's the percentage of jackasses you've had to deal with that like stayed jackasses and left, or like stayed jackasses and continued, being around you, causing a clusterfuck and everything? And what's the percentage of people that were like jackasses and then somebody was able to come in and be like, hey bro, you're a jackass, like you should level up, you should do better, or like try this, that, or the other thing, or whatever.
I do got a story. When I was managing Sam's Club, there was this one particular lady, and she really had a problem showing up to work.
Hungry.
Yeah, she just could not show up, but she was definitely personable, right? And then when she did the show, or when she did the work, she did the work well, So, and of course, she got along with everybody, but she just always had such a horrible problem showing up to work.
Yeah.
And eventually I had to, like, she got enough points where it's like, all right, well, you're basically on your way out the door at this point. And I had to have a sit down with her and be like, you know what, I really don't want you to leave because you're really good at what you do,
Yeah.
She's what I call, and I had a couple of people like this on my team back then, like a kind of a mind person, It's like they're when you're working at a Sam's Club, it's like a warehouse type thing, right? And we were overnights, by the way, too, so that's where all the heavy lifting happens. Perfect for someone like me, right? But so I preferred to drive the forklifts around and then throw 2-ton pallets of water all over the place, right? That was fun for me. So I preferred to do that. The thing I hated the most was like auditing. Have to go through all the 50,000 plus items and audit them all and make sure that they're all there. I hated that so much, but I had two people
like manifesting and quality control all combined into one terrible thing. Oh man, bean counters, bro. That sucks.
And so I had two people, and she was one of them where I noticed that they weren't somebody who was going to sit there and start throwing water around and all that like I was, right? And so, I told Gigi, I was like, you know what? Hey, you are so good at this. All I want to do is just hand you the notepad and all that. And I want you just to go through and like make sure everything is good. And she really liked doing that, And when I was like brutally honest with her of like, I just want this with you. That's like the main, that's like your thing, She started showing up every single day to work.
Fuck yeah, dude.
It was never a problem. In fact, she became a lead there, and I think she's a manager now. But yeah, still working the same place. And this was
Bro,
like Jesus. This was
for a
like
bulldozer,
5,
that's
6
a
years
pretty
ago.
smart move, man. I like it.
Yeah, brutal. So that's one of those cases where my non-interpersonal actually worked because I was brutally honest. I'm like, this is what I want.
Yeah.
And she connected with that, I guess, but
That's
got
cool as
lucky on
hell,
that one,
man.
right?
Farmer, you got any stories? It looks like you're thinking about something there. What you
Yeah, I
got?
was probably thinking I was probably that jackass when I was an apprentice.
Oh yeah.
And I think in the trades, a lot of the time is probably when you're younger and an apprentice, you're probably more of that way. And in our trade, the people that as you go through your apprenticeship, the people that keep with those problems are usually the ones that get weeded out. And as like, and I was one that like, I don't care about calling off today. I don't care. I'm gonna call off. And nowadays I don't call off. Like today, the rest of the crew wanted to leave early, right? There was very little to do. So I told them, yeah, if you guys want to bounce, go ahead. I'll take care of the rest of it by myself. It was just walking around and taking some notes and stuff of what we have to do on Monday. So, but probably when I was younger, I would have been, fuck this, nooner or sooner. Let's get the fuck out of here. So I was probably that way, like in the trades. And for us, we don't specifically stay working for one company. So sometimes when that company doesn't have any work, you bounce around. So you see the same people sometimes over and over. And the people that usually are the jackasses are the ones that usually have problem keeping long-term jobs on certain projects. So you always see them at the hiring hall. And usually the people that companies find valuable are the ones that stick around projects toward the end when they end. And if there's
Okay.
other work, they'll move on to the next project. If there isn't work, they'll go back to the hiring hall and they'll go hit the next project.
I have yeah. This sounds very man. This is like I don't know if deep in the weeds union stuff is the way to describe this, but I with the way that unions work is someone somewhere comes out with a project. They say, hey, we need this many bodies from of electrician people, so they go to electric union place where you guys are at, and then you guys are like, all right, I'm doing this, project, whatever it is. Say that you're building a stadium, right, or something like that, and then like, all right, from like beginning of stadium being built all the way to the end, like these are the guys that are working it, yada yada yada, or something like that, right?
Yeah, for the most part. And there's certain people that bounce around from company to company. Some do it by choice, others can't keep a job. There's
Mhm.
other people that get called off from a company for a certain project and they'll stay with that company their whole career. There's other
Oh,
people there's other people that get poached by other contractors. So
mhm.
as far as how the hiring hall works is there's probably about 70 or 80 different contractors you can work for.
Yeah,
So and if you ever burn your bridges with one of them, which is
yeah,
not a good idea because
yeah.
usually you'll see those people working at a different company after. Sometimes
Mhm.
one company slows down where they just have to do like a massive layoff because they have no work. But that's fine because there's these other two companies that are short staff and they're actually hiring. But so when you go to places, you usually start seeing the same faces. And I remember when I first got into the trade, I was told, don't burn your bridges because your reputation will follow you. You'll start going to these other places and company, and you'll start seeing some of the same faces or people that are like superintendents and stuff. Sometimes they'll get poached from other companies. You might have worked for that person before, and then you
Mhm.
go to this new company and he's in charge over there because he was poached because they wanted him to run that project. So you'll start seeing that, and you start seeing who's competent in the trades and who give them a broom and put them to clean up or like pulling wire is kind of a mindless work, not having to figure stuff out. But the person that has to set up the whole thing has to have some sort of competence. But the other people don't, right? It's just when I tell you pull, pull,
Yeah,
just when we tell you pull,
It's
pull, when we tell you stop, stop.
yeah,
yeah.
it's the same thing in the pest control industry. Same type of stuff.
Yeah, right. Like you usually see the same people. It's the industry, right? It's not really
Yeah.
that company, but it's the same thing. Whether if you were working on union as well, like you'd see all this stuff. Like if you're in the industry, it's a tight industry because there's only certain companies that are able to get these big work, like the big work. And if you want to work like on big projects, like when I was at a few of the stadiums, you would see some of these people get laid off, and then they come back working for another company, and then you see them get laid off again.
Uh-oh.
Because some of these stadiums, they would have like 10, 12 different electrical contractors, and you see some of these guys just bouncing around 2 weeks here, 2 weeks here, and they couldn't keep a job because they were the jackass.
Yep. So like one of the most important things that a person can do is just be able to receive and like take action based off of the feedback that they're getting from other people, you know. And that's why it's important to surround yourself with cool coaches, and like one of the things that he says in the book is to use your friends as coaches. Like the little thing that we just did now, where we like listed off this is the thing that we're the best at, this is the thing that we're the middleest at, this is the thing that's like not our strong suit or whatever.
Yeah, and I think like Ned said about that woman at Sam's comes, right? Sometimes if something's good at somebody, like just put them in a place to succeed. If that's what they're good at, like somebody needs to do that task. If that task needs to get done, hey, this person suited for it. Let them have
square peg in a square hole, right?
Yeah,
I like it. Mrs. McGettit, I think so you have an interesting field. You deal a lot with Pokemon folks and a lot of the online buying and selling of like retail things. So I think that like your world of dealing with this stuff in like a professional sense is a little bit different, because a lot of it's online and a lot of it's, you know, dealing with people that are essentially anonymous, right? So if I had to guess, I would guess that most of your problems have to do with people having a severe lack of either smarts or humility. Would I be correct in that sense?
For the most part, yeah. Usually I would say it's probably smarts. There are quite a few though that are absolutely the opposite of humble. I had one person. I guess this is my fun story. I actually didn't think I had one for this, but it's kind of similar to what Nate went through. A little bit. There was one person he's owned a game store out here in our state for
like a physical like a you walk in and buy cards and get Warhammer figurines and things.
Yes, exactly. And mostly actually he does a lot of video games, like vintage video games too. So like N64 and stuff. It's actually a really cool place. But he was on my friends list, and I didn't actually realize he was like even out here. But one day he popped up like, oh yeah, I'm in Shakopee. That's where it was. I couldn't remember for a sec. And I'm like, cool. And we didn't really talk too much, but I had at one point made a post about they made there are things you might most people probably know this by now, but in Pokemon there are shiny Pokemon, like, so there's like the regular one and then the shiny one is harder to get.
Yep.
And they were making a card version of a shiny Venusaur finally, after like 20 something years of never having made one for that Pokemon, even though it's the third Pokemon in the Pokédex. So I was like, yay, they're finally doing it.
There was never a shiny of that?
Yeah, wow. Exactly. I was actually like offended because the other two, Charizard's got like a ton of them. Blastoise had like at least one, but Venusaur never had one. So I was like offended, and I had been complaining about it for a couple of years, and they finally brought one out. So I made a post talking about it and how excited I was. And he came onto the post and he's like, oh no, this already exists. It's this card. And I'm like, no, it's not. And he's like, well, but back when they made these cards, they didn't really know what shiny Pokemon were. And they were just like, they didn't specify them at the point. And I'm like, my guy, no, you're wrong. The card that he was talking about had come out like 3 or 4 years after Shining Pokemon came out in the card game. They definitely had it well established what they were doing with that system. But he wanted to argue. He's like, I've been in Pokemon for 20 years, and I guarantee you I know more than anybody you know about it. And I'm like, okay, those are fighting words, buddy. With my friend group, like that's a very bold claim. And a bunch of different ones of my friends popped up, and they're like, wow, this guy's hilarious. And they weren't bashing him, but they were making fun of him pretty well. My friends are usually decent, and especially with me, they don't come to my posts usually acting like clowns. They can act that way, but not usually with me. So they were still respectful. But he got flooded. There was like a ton of comments, and one of my friends was just like, I just came here to see somebody argue shiny Pokemon with you. And I'm like, okay, thank you for the vote of confidence. But he ended up deleting his comment because he said he got way too many responses and people were just like spamming him. Mm-hmm. And then he came to me individually and he actually apologized for it.
Oh, okay.
And
that's good.
yeah, and he when he
humble yourself, fool. Humble yourself.
He basically did, because we talked a little bit, and I was telling him that in my experience with Pokemon has been that we got the games before they released in America. My grandfather worked at a game store at the time, so my family got the games a little bit before they came out because he had them early. So, and I would never claim to, out of all of my friend group, I would never claim to be the person who knows the most about that subject. I just never would. And after that, I mean, he was just like so friendly, completely changed around. Like the humility just hit him like a tank when he got that like overwhelming response of all these people just jumping on him, being like, "Dude, you're wrong. Like you don't know." And so yeah, I guess it's a little bit like what Nate went through with his coworker, which by the way, she is a manager there now. I have seen her a few times because I still go to that store. She's very, very sweet, sweet lady now. So
excellent.
All because Nate put her in a position to succeed.
Hang on, I'm pulling up a graph of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which I'm pretty sure we have discussed before in our Mrs. Magetta. If you don't mind, I have a share screen going on right now. If you could pull that up. Excellent. So this is the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? So what homeboy, can you see my little mouse here? Is my mouse showing up? Oh, dang it. Okay, cool. It should be like a little zooming thing. But anyways, oh, look, he's actually explaining the Dunning-Kruger effect with using the Dunning-Kruger effect. So basically, like a lot of people live up here. They're super confident about something that they know very little bit about. And it sounds like even though homeboy was in the Pokemon time frame for like a long frame of time, he made a bad claim and he was living up here on the peak of Mount Stupid, or the peak of Mount Overconfident. And then like when everyone flooded his inbox, he's like, ah, shit, right down into the low confidence zone. But in so doing, he gains experience and he learns a new thing. So that was all that I wanted to share there with that. This reminded me of the your story reminded me of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Like people with humility, they go from Mount Stupid. I'm gonna go ahead and stop screen sharing now if you are ready to pull it back down. There we go. All right. But yeah, when people go and they eat a slice of humble pie and they're like, oh snap, that's a tough one. That's a tough cookie to crack when people think that they're like the bee's knees to the cat's pajamas, and then it turns out like, oh snap, you're actually totally super wrong. I'm glad to hear that there was a white light at the end of that tunnel, and homeboy, offered apology and then grew and everything. That's fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and
it was definitely nice.
Excellent. I like it. We're going to go ahead and do another quick little round of chat shoutouts because we're at the 40-minute mark in the show. So chat shoutouts time. I see that we've got 2 new people in the chats.
Looks I'm gonna crack a beer now. Just had my tea. Time for beer.
Very good. Time for beer. Nazdrovia, amigo. First off, in the chat shoutouts, Mr. Producer, pull up Tam saying, "What's up, fam? What's up, Tam? Good to see the #1 pulse chain cryptocurrency DGen Roundtable cheerleader in the house. Glad to have you. Good to see you." And then next up after that, we've got Hex Glenn holding up money. So I'm going to hold up these rolls of quarters because that's the only money that I have around right now that is physical. So what's up, Glenn? Good to see you. Or no, he's not holding money. Those are waving signs. I thought it was holding a green dollar bill thing. That kind of looks green to me. It looks like he's holding 2 fists of dollars. That's hilarious. Okay, so Hex Glenn is waving. Hi, Hex Glenn. That's funny. I totally misread that one. Excellent. Oh, and we've also got Mr. Tin Top saying, what's up, Hexkins? What's up, Tin Top? Good to see a fellow Hexkin in the house. Love it. And absolutely stoked to get into some more discussion of this book. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some more of these questions. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is for the folks at home who might not know much about this, I'm going to go ahead and do another share screen, Mrs. Magetta, and I'm going to pull up a cool little, oh man, where did it go? Ideal team player model. There it is. Bamskis. I'm going to pull up the little ideal team player model. So this is the ideal team player model, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We've got over here on the left, you've got the description of what is an ideal team player, and it describes the 3 characteristics and how they intersect with each other. I forgot what this kind of is a Venn diagram. Is that the name of this thing where it's all the circles? I'm pretty sure this is a Venn diagram. It's some sort of diagram. It's an infographics that you can get from readingraphics.com, where ideas come alive. But this kind of describes the ideal team player, and it shows like you've got the humble on top, you've got the smart over on the side, and then you've got the hungry down on the other side. And then over here on the right-hand side, can you guys see my mouse now? Is my mouse showing up again?
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
you're good.
Yeah, sweet. So when I switch tabs, the mouse does different things. So just double checking. Right. So yeah. So all three virtues are essential to facilitate teamwork. Then over here we've got the guy that's so we should describe, this is something I should have done over in the beginning. I'm actually going to do this now. So like there's types of people that, like, obviously the ideal team player is what we're all striving to be, right? And then if we're a combination of two of the characteristics, then that's pretty good. Like we can work with that. We can make some progress with that. We've got the accidental messmaker, who's a combination of the pawn and the bulldozer. They're like, they're nice and humble, and they're also really hungry for work, but they're not very great at going around and interacting with people. So they're like, oops,
They offend
I
people basically.
yeah,
And
going
getting
around.
it's kind of like they get the work done. They
Mhm,
do a good job of getting the work done, and people like it when they get the work done because they tend to spread out, like, the fame and all that.
mhm.
But at the same time, they're so rude about the way they go about it that people are like, I really don't like that guy.
Yeah. So you were saying, Nate, earlier that smart is your least strong thing. So this is where you were putting yourself earlier again. You used to be the
Yeah,
bulldozer, and you've
yeah,
leveled up
I've
to
learned
accidental
how to
messmaker.
spread out my accomplishments from being a bulldozer out to more people who basically kind of like learned from me in my particular industry.
Uh-huh.
However, I tend to be a little bit more bold and truthful in things that I say, and maybe not so political.
That's okay. That's all good, bro. It's a skill that you can learn, and there's and it's good that you know that, like I'm over here being the lovable slacker, but my strong suit is the smart thing. So like we're here to keep each other honest, and you can probably teach me a little bit more about having some ambition and being hungry and going around and actually doing things. So I could pull that off for you. Um, Oh shoot, what was I had a thought there and I totally forgot about it. No, none of us here are skillful politicians. So I don't think we really have to worry about that. The skillful politicians are, as Patrick was describing earlier, that's like the guy that you really got to fucking look out for, because they're fucking charming, and so they can pretend to be humble, and they're also really good at working. And so it's like this is like he looks like he's a good ideal team player, but like over a long period of time you could see that they're pretty much always self-serving, and they will like almost always put themselves before the team, before the mission, before the whatever it is that's going on. But they can fake it for a little bit, and so it's kind of like almost a snake in the grass or something like that.
Yeah, it's a dangerous position to be in for corporations because corporations look at two things generally. They look
Yeah.
at how well do you get along with people, and what's your production like? What's the numbers? And I'll tell you
Uh-huh.
what, the skillful politician is very good at those. But do people actually truly like you? And that's where the whole humble side of things come in. And they
Yeah.
will bury you in the dirt and step over your body, your grave, to make sure they get their way.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I gotta say, I've been we got Mr. Fast Abdul. What is he saying? I am humble and also the best at everything. Mr. Fast Abdul, I challenge you to a humility contest. And fortunately for me, I know I will win that humility contest because I happen to be the most humble person in the world, as the joke goes. I love it. This is great. Oh, we've also got another person who has joined the chat. Shout out to DB Zen. Oh, they're talking about the 28 million ladybugs. Oh man, they've learned to meme. I've created a monster apparently. I was talking to these guys. Shout out to the 28 million guys. A little bit of a deviation of the conversation, but I was telling them that they need to do more community engagement and make more memes and stuff. So I was able to convince a community to go and make memes and things. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, I haven't had the misfortune of having to deal with too many politicians. I don't think during my time. Have you guys ever had to deal with someone who's kind of like a snake in the grass who just want to extract and extract? Miss McGettit, I see you came off mute there. What do you got?
Oh yeah, that's been the most common one that I've run into,
No
unfortunately.
kidding.
Oh yeah,
Really?
and I think it might be maybe the state of Minnesota. That's kind of the most common one you see.
Mm,
And like they were mentioning in the book, these people have a tendency to rise up through the ranks pretty easily in most companies because most companies are more focused on the hunger side of everything. They want to grow, 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 make more and more and more money.
yeah,
And
production.
humility has unfortunately become not a very well desired virtue out here. And I
Yeah.
think this is the book talks about this quite a bit, and I really liked everything that they had to say, because one thing that he was saying is that humility is like the hardest one, that if you like, well, actually he kind of named humility as like the hardest one to be able to like learn and figure out. But then he also named hungry as one of the harder ones to get, because if somebody's just not ambitious, it's very rare that that will change unless the situation changes. So the example of like moving people who don't have the drive, the hungry part of it, to a different job where they don't need it, that was like his best solution for people who weren't hungry, because unfortunately with a business, if you don't have that for that particular business, you're just probably not going to. But when it comes to humility, if you don't have any humility, like just those people who really just don't have that in them are really like the most difficult ones for us to be able to get along with, and for them to be able to be team players. Because if you're not humble, if you're arrogant or you're conceited, it's very, very difficult for people like that to be able to see the bigger picture of what the whole team needs.
Yeah, not only that, but also, like I said, they're willing to step over people. And so all it takes is a single individual who's not very far off from being a very good teammate and an asset to your business, right? But you get these guys who come in and like, they're useless, and then they'll just bury them. Next thing you know, they're getting poached by somebody, by a different company, and they get that one problem that they had fixed, and now they're doing really good. But when you're looking at the numbers, when you're looking at the overall likability of these people, yeah, I mean, I've seen it before where there's people like this, and again, maybe it's a Minnesota thing, right? But there's a lot of people I've come across who they don't find an interest in being truthful with you. It's more of the stab you in the back type of thing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say everything I need to say, and then I'm going to do the work, right? But then later on, you come to find out that even the work that you yourself did, the credit was taken by somebody else. And then you start explaining that to the boss, and the boss is like, what the hell's going on here? So like, yeah, it's it's got to be like a place we live,
It might be. I think that you and I had talked about this before in the past, Nate, that like the North resources are more scarce because it's colder, just like the general, like it's almost like a don't want to burn bridges by like potentially saying something that would offend people, and like that would cut off, like, maybe like if your house like loses power in the middle of the winter or whatever, or like maybe something bad happens and whatever, like you're shit out of luck. It might be like an abundance mentality. I think that like a lot of people are more polite in the South because there's like it's easier to like not have to worry about dying as a result of the elements or something. So it might be like an abundance versus scarcity sort of mindset where these people are going around doing politician-y stuff, as opposed to like giving people hard critical feedback and potentially like, uncomfortable uncomfortable information or something like that. I don't know. I'm kind of theorizing a little bit. Farmer Jay, as I recall, you live further down in the South. Have you had to deal with a whole lot of politician types, the skillful
Oh,
politicians?
I got to deal with all these jackasses right here.
Oh yeah.
Like when you're on these huge construction sites, like you run into all these people.
Yeah.
Like, and usually the skillful politician is like some of the people that are in charge of these projects, and all they care about is the bottom line numbers.
Yeah.
And it's usually attached to bonuses for themselves. But yeah, you run into all these people like the charmer, the lovable slacker, the one who fucks up on accident, the bulldozer that just makes a mess of everything. But yeah, there's plenty of them. In the unions, we actually have politicians because you have the people in charge are elected by the membership. The people
That's
that
interesting.
yeah. So you actually run into all of these. I would say on smaller jobs, you usually have more of the ideal team players.
Uh-huh.
And on these huge jobs, multi-billion-dollar jobs, you like the stadium and stuff, you run into more of a very large portion of the other on the right side of that chart, where you have just different personalities that go across the whole spectrum.
Farmer, it's actually really funny that you bring that up, because what you're talking about is the exact one of the exact examples that they use in the book. The story that they gave was It's a smaller construction company, and they've got 2 big jobs that they got to take on that they're just not going to be able to do because they don't have the manpower. So they go looking to try and figure this out. And one of the people that they almost hired was Ted. Ted is basically exactly what you're describing. He worked for a massive construction company. He was in that billion-dollar job, and he was very much in the skillful politician position. So like what you just described there is basically exactly what they ran into. They had that smaller business where more and more people were like in the ideal team player mindset versus Ted, who they almost hired in, who came from that billion-dollar industry, who would have been the skillful politician.
Nate, who is your favorite character of all the people in the stories? Who is the one that like, or maybe not favorite? Who is the one that stuck out to you the most while you were reading the story portion? I'm also testing your sound quality here right now because we got a comment in the chat.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, you can just get me to talk. You know, it's easy. But without even thinking about it, Jeff, for sure. Because not only was he thrown into a situation where like he really like that's a bad situation to be in, you know, but then also he reminded me a lot of myself because I tend to be something of like a fact finder, right? Jeff was really like, I have an idea and I'm trying to do a thing, but he never said, okay, that's the thing to go do like Bobby would, you know, like, oh, let's hire him right away, right? Like with Todd, he was like, there's something missing here. I need more information. And then he would go looking for more information. I connect highly with that because that's a tendency with what I have, you know. That's just kind of like I do this to you guys, you know. It's like I'll start asking around, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? That's me gathering information. You know, there's something that I want to confirm, right? That I have a suspicion about that I want to confirm. So I start gathering information to see like what is really going on here. You know, I don't like jumping to conclusions right away and saying this is it. This is the gospel truth, right?
It's funny that you mentioned Bobby, bro, because when that story happened, I was like, oh yeah, I'm fucking Bobby. I would have fucking hired that dude right on the spot.
Hire the bullshitter, huh? Right away.
Oh yeah, I would have, and then you know, like eventually figured it out and fired him. But like, yeah, like I'm much more like solutions oriented, so that way I don't have to do the work. You know, it's kind of like solve the problem, so that way I can go back to being the lazy, lovable slacker and shit. So that's what's
Go
up.
ahead, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, and that's basically like that was kind of funny that you mentioned that, Nate. I was like, oh yeah, that's my little spot in there. What you got, Miss McGinnis?
Yeah, that's kind of funny because I think out of all the 3 of them, I'd probably relate most to Claire. One thing that she noticed, and this is what ultimately tipped them off to like kind of what was bothering them about Ted, because both Claire and sorry, I almost called them Fred, Jeff, had like, okay, there's something here, but they couldn't quite figure out what it was. But Claire, when she noticed that he didn't remember Kim's name, even though Kim had been the receptionist that had been helping him that whole day through all of these multiple interviews, and at that point, I think he'd done like 3 of them. That stuck out to her, and that would have stuck out to me too. That would have been something that I would have been immediately like in my brain, like, oh, that's very weird because you've seen this person multiple times today. You should probably know her name by now. So I guess we got the dynamic trio here. We are the 3 in the book.
Okay, I like it. This is fun. All right, so I just realized that like we're talking about the characters from the book, and I haven't explained to the folks at home who these characters are. So if you guys don't mind, really quick, I'm gonna just run through a quick little synopsis. Fortunately for me, ChatGPT was fantastic enough to write a quick little 1-sentence blip on who these guys are. So there's 7 characters. There's actually this is Flightline speak for 7. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right. So if you guys are ever on an airport flight line in the military, that's how you count out to numbers if you only got one hand and stuff, and this would be 10. So fun fact. All right, but for the folks at home, Jeff Shaley, okay, so he's actually the protagonist of the story. He's taking over his uncle's construction company, Valley Builders, and he aims to turn it around by identifying and developing the 3 essential virtues. So Jeff Shanley is the main character, right? And that's why Nate liked him, because he's the main character. You're fucking A right, Nate. I love it.
Main character status. I'm the protagonist.
Yep. Next up is Bob Shanley, Jeff's uncle and the former CEO of Valley Builders. He steps down due to health issues and entrusts Jeff with the future of the company. Then there's Claire, the company's chief operating officer, the COO. She is instrumental in helping Jeff implement the changes needed to cultivate the 3 virtues within the team. Then we got Bobby, head of business development at Valley Builders. He's charismatic and smart, but initially lacks humility. Jeff and Claire work with him to develop this virtue. Next up, we got Janet, number 5, head of human resources. She supports Jeff in identifying and addressing the lack of the 3 virtues in all of the employees, and she plays a key role in shaping the company's culture. Next up, we got Carlos, a project manager who is humble and hungry, but struggles with people smarts. He shows his journey in improving his personal skills. Oh, I thought it was Nancy. Nancy is an
Yeah, I think
administrative
that
exec.
might be.
Okay, yeah, this might be ChatGPT might be mixing them up here. I'm pretty sure that Nancy was the one who needed the smart skills, but that's
I think
okay.
only the top three is what we need to discuss, though. In truth and
Yeah,
reality, though.
yeah, you're right. That was the last one,
Oh,
and yeah, Nancy was the last one, anyways. That they had covered here. But yeah, those
no,
are
because I
basically
wanted
the
to.
main characters of the story. But each
Yeah,
one
I
of the
think it
main
was.
characters, like they were like they were an epitome of like these different like so somebody was the accidental mess maker. I can't remember who it was. Somebody was the lovable slacker. Somebody was the politician, right? And then they were looking for the ideal team player when they were going through like all the candidates that they were going to hire to help do the leadership stuff. So that was the meat and potatoes of the reason I wanted to talk about the characters and things. What did you have there, Mrs. McGinnis?
No, I just want to say that you're right. It was Nancy, and I thought she was a great example. I was kind of hoping to chat about her a little bit
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
during the thing. I wanted to ask really quick. Did they? I want to say they had an example for the lovable slacker, but I can't remember who that was.
I'm gonna ask ChatGPT.
Oh, okay. No, I think they mentioned them, but they didn't actually interview that person because they brought in Nancy near the end of the book because they were like, okay, what do we do about her? She
Yeah,
was
yeah, they
lacking in the
interviewed her,
smart
right?
category. Yep, and that's what they ended up doing. They called it a re-interview, and they re-interviewed Nancy, and she called her own flaws out to them. She pointed it out on her own, which means that she had enough humility to accept that maybe she wasn't perfect at everything, and then to identify what the issue was. And so they were able to keep her on and train her and get her to, grow those people smarts and get better in that category. And I really liked that example in the story because I just think it's so important, and that's why like they said, humility is a really big thing. Because if you don't have the humility and you can't grasp that part, if you can't, integrate it in some ways, you can't learn that, then you don't get to grow. You don't get to become more of the ideal team player. You're either, the bulldozer, the skillful politician, the charmer, one of those. Like if you don't have the humility, you don't have as much capabilities of growth. And that's why I really liked her example.
Okay. Yeah, I think that Bobby was the to answer your earlier question of the lovable slacker. I had misspoken. Bobby, I think, is the lovable slacker, and then he becomes. I think that they promoted him, right? They promoted
No,
Bobby.
Bobby was already one of the head people.
Oh,
I think it
okay,
was like Mark or something. They brought up a Mark. They didn't actually go through re-interview process with him, but it was somebody that they had considered to hire for the fourth. But then they all said he just had no hunger at all, and so they couldn't.
gotcha. Okay, that's right. That's right. Yeah, because I remember they were looking for leadership and they hired people. Man, I'm all sorts of lost on the story because I'm not gonna lie. The last time I listened to the story was probably about 6 months ago. And in prep for this book club, I did not listen to the story all over again. So shame on me for doing that. But hey, like I do remember the story about the politician one is the one that stuck out to me the most. I gotta say.
Yeah, that one was with Ted, and I think that was the most important one. They really did go over
Yeah.
that quite a bit because I think the main point they wanted to get across by talking about that one so much is how hard it was to figure
Mhm.
that out when it came to Ted because he seemed so perfect. And like we said, Bobby was like, jump straight into him, let's go. But the other two were like, hang on a second. And they had to really figure out like why Ted was just sticking out to them in some kind of a negative way because he had so many perfect, just what's the word for that?
Like
Um,
like checks in the boxes or whatever.
yes, but there's a specific word, and I'm trying to remember qualifications. He had
Yeah.
so many perfect qualifications, but there was an issue the whole time that they couldn't quite identify it, and they finally got there. But I had to take Ted literally like backing out. And Ted must
Mhm.
have gotten like a sense of like, oh, they're not going to hire him. So he's just like, no, I don't even want to do it because I can already see that I'm not going to get the job.
Well, okay, so when it came to that, actually, it was the interview. It was the interview with Jeff where he. It's been multiple times that at this point that Todd had been interviewed with different people, and they kept saying he's amazing, he's amazing, he's amazing. But he's like, there's something off. I can't put my finger on it. What is wrong? And so he went and interviewed him with himself. Went out to lunch with him, and he just kind of kept poking and prodding because he wanted to get the whole humble aspect. He's like, I'm 50-50 on this. And eventually he just straight up says, hey, we're looking for specifically these 3 things at this with the culture. Do you think that you could fit in with this? And he was very specific about the way he wanted it with the whole humble part. And it threw Todd off because Todd was kind of like, well, I don't know if I can sit there and guarantee that I would be glad and happy to work with in this kind of culture. And as it turns out in the end, yeah, he didn't really, people didn't like him as much because he really was a skillful politician. He was out there to up himself, bury everybody else around him, and then just move forward, right?
Yeah,
And that only came out afterwards.
I think I was gonna say
it was that uncomfortableness. Yeah, go ahead, Farmer.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the one thing about skillful politicians, right? Like if you tell them what you're looking for, they're gonna pretend to be that, and then like it takes time, and time will show what they actually are. But when you actually tell somebody that you're looking for these specific characteristics, they're just gonna tell you, yeah, this is who I am exactly. What a fit! But then you find out they're just full of bullshit.
One of the antidotes he had, because he had mentioned in the very end of the book, he talks about interviewing, and actually this is a great transition into the next topic. Farmer J, thank you. The one of the things that he was talking about towards the end of the book is like how they would interview people, or recommendations he would have for interviewing people, um in this like process of like when you're trying to add someone to the team. One of the things that they would do is he would be sincere at the and he would put it in at the end of the interview, not in the beginning or like in the middle. He would say, listen, so these are the 3 qualities that we're looking for at the people here, that like, at X, Y, and Z company or whatever the heck, is like, we want people that are humble, we want people that are hungry, we want people that are smart. And if like the people are not a combination of those 3 things, like that's one of the things that we keep like a pretty heavy accountability on. We all call each other out on like, hey, you're not being really humble right now, or like we'll step off into the side, and like we'll do corrective measures constantly and all the time. There will be like there will be like a level of accountability to it, and constant reminding and things. And so people who are not a combination of those 3 things, or are not willing to work on whatever the thing is that they're missing out of this cadre of qualities, right? If they don't have it, or they're not willing to work on it, then they're going to have a hard time working here, because we're just going to be constantly reminding them like, hey, just so you know, like you suck at this thing, or hey, just so you know, you need to work on that, blah 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 blah. So if like the people aren't improving, they're just going to be like constantly reminded of like how, like, hey bro, like this is something that you're slacking in. And a lot of people, when they're presented with that like that corrective reminder all the time, they'll leave on their own accord, or they'll fix it. The ideal scenario is they fix it and they become a better person, and then you guys could, like, everyone can all be like happy in friendship and move forward. But like sometimes, they'll quit on their own, or like worst case scenario, they'll not quit on their own and they won't take the direction, and then it's like, all right, cool, now we have to kind of like, you know do the whole documentation thing, and do the whole like, counseling, and then leave the paper trail, and then like eventually go
You're
to like
fired.
firing or whatever. Yeah, exactly. And that's like the worst case scenario. But for people who are interested in like, improving themselves and receiving feedback and doing all this good stuff, like having that constant like, hey, these are our core values of like humble, hungry, and smart. These are the things that we're looking for. These are the things that were very important. Like people that are doing that, or people that are interested in that sort of stuff, they're gonna have a great time working here. And they're gonna be like constantly like, honing themselves and honing each other's, and they're just gonna be surrounded by excellence. So like at the end of the interview, or what he recommends doing at the end of interviews with people, is you sit them down and you say, hey, like these are the qualities, and again, make sure to do it at the end, so that way the skillful politician like doesn't know like right in the beginning, like, this is what I have to pretend to be. I have to put on my acting face or whatever, and get around this stuff. But yeah, that was something that I think was pretty interesting. So what I want to ask you guys is like, when you're interacting with people in real life, I'm gonna make this kind of like analogous to the interview process, right? When we're interacting with people in real life, we're sort of kind of doing job interviews of a different nature. It's like it's the job of friendship. It's the job of like, am I going to hang out with you? Am I going to, go to the mall, or are we going to go kayaking, or are we going to like do a cryptocurrency podcast, or like are we going to build this, electric project in a stadium. Like there's different levels of interviewing and job interviewing, or there's at least things that are analogous in our life. Do you guys think after having read this book that you're going to pay attention a little bit differently to people that are in your lives and try and find the folks who are the pawns or the bulldozers or the politicians or the slackers or whatever, and like you're going to judge them probably a little bit in your head, but are you going to look at them differently now and think like, hey, I can, like, if they're interested in feedback, is that something that you guys would be comfortable with giving people now?
I would say for me personally, it depends on the individual, right?
Uh-huh.
And depends on the situation, right? Like if you're like hanging out with people, right? Like you get a feel for them, right? Like, is this somebody like, if I just meet this person, hey, is this somebody like I would be interested, or are we a fit to, like, maybe if we're coworkers, is this somebody like I can hang out outside of work, maybe after work, maybe go grab a beer at a bar, right?
Yeah.
And while you're there, you make further assessments, right? Is this a person I'd be interested in? Like, do we have activities we like to do in common? Does this person like going to the shooting range, or is this person do we live completely different lifestyles, right? Like where did this person fit in, right? Like with your character and their character, right? Are you guys a good mix, a good clash? It kind of goes the same thing at work, right? When you go to new work, right? The interview process can be one thing, right? But when you're actually working, that's when you kind of can assess what that person's all about at work, right? Like
Mhm.
without, like, obviously people have bad days here and there, right? But for
Yeah.
the most part, is this somebody reliable, somebody I can count on? Somebody who's going to show up every day. If we have something that's hot and heavy coming up tomorrow, it, is this person somebody we can count on to show up? Yeah, are they going to call off? Are they a drunk? Are they a drug addict? Right? Like if you're hanging out with somebody, you get a good assessment of basically uh, who they are. I've always say, like, to get to know somebody, you actually got to get to know somebody. Like
Yeah.
you can't like, people try to put their the best face they can at when you meet them, right? That might necessarily be who they are. Me, I don't give a fuck. You'll know who the fuck I am right away. Like I don't care. Like if people don't like me, hey, they don't like me. Like I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And then that's fine. Like I don't I'm not mad at if somebody feels that way, like, oh, this person's too much, or I don't like his personality. I'll be like, it is what it is, right? So me, I try to be as obnoxious as possible to usually when I meet people, just kind of to eliminate people, because I'm not really like a big people person, or like try to expand like the people I know or hang out with. Like
Yeah.
I mostly like to stay to myself, and whenever I have free time, they're like, if I have this free time to do it, there's probably only certain type of people I want to hang out with.
Yep.
Like 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 everybody, like you're not meant to just hang out with everybody and be like sometimes it's best if you just keep your circle small, and like if somebody doesn't fit that circle anymore, it's okay to move people out and move people in. And I
Mhm.
think it's kind of like the same at work, right? If you're at work and stuff, like if certain people fit the needs of a company, then they're a good fit, right? Because you need somebody for this, somebody for that. Yes, somebody could be like this, like on big jobs, somebody can be that slacker. Hey man, that person can just keep inventory of material, right? If they're not the best hustler and stuff like that, somebody still needs to do a certain task, right? And you could put that person to do that certain task. And when
Yep.
that task no longer needs to be done, then that person probably isn't a fit for that company anymore. And I specifically talk about the construction industry because that's pretty much all I deal with. And like on these big jobs, they ramp up and they man up, they man down. So
Mhm.
usually towards the end of the jobs, the people that stick around are the people that can still provide value for the tasks that need to be done, and those that no longer have a task that needs to be done that they're good at usually are the ones that get laid off. They'll be at another job soon, but for that particular project, they're no longer a fit.
Yep. That makes sense. I've got some good news for you, Mr. Farmer Jay. Over here in the chats, Mrs. Producer, if you wouldn't mind pulling up, we got Moonpilled Rational Optics. He's interested in having a beer with you, Mr. Farmer Jay. So
Absolutely.
you can go get a beer and go to the range with Moonpilled Rational Optics. And as I recall, Moonpilled is a blue collar fellow, just like the three of us as well. So That is most excellent. And you know what, Miss McGinn, I'm gonna go ahead and qualify you as almost blue collar. You're pretty damn close. Having a husband like Mr. Nate over there, you're basically dragged into the blue collar cadre. So we can all go have beers and have fun together and hang out. So outstanding. And it's good to see you too, by the way, Mr. Moonpill. What you got?
I just wanted to ask, is that a good thing?
Is that a
Not
good
sure how I
thing?
feel about that.
That means you can drive me home from the bar.
There
when
you
I'm
go.
not
Yeah.
drunk.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say it's a good thing because that means you get to hang out. You get to like experience the success of being attached to your wonderful husband, and so you can go and do all the cool things. So I say it's an absolute win. And plus, you got to go and meet cool people like myself and Mr. Angry Twinkie and Farmer Jay eventually, and the rest of the DGen Roundtable folks.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a kick-ass family at the end of this. Well, we already have a kick-ass family
Yeah.
as it is. We're gonna have kick-ass like real life interactions and awesomeness. Speaking
Yeah,
of,
like-
actually,
I was just gonna say, life is like, pretty damn serious, but when it's time to let loose, it's always good to have like a crowd of people, that you can let loose and have a group of trust with. Like, yeah, life's a bitch and it's hard, but when it's time to have fun, hey, let's just have fun and enjoy ourselves.
Yep.
And you want a group that you can actually enjoy your time with. Like, I personally say I stay away from knuckleheads and troublemakers. Like, if you're a knucklehead and a troublemaker when you go out, like if you're the type of guy that likes to start bar fights every time, screw that. I ain't going out with you.
Yep.
Jay,
That's a
Farmer, I was
liability.
about to be like, well, why are you hanging out with us then? But then you specifically starting
I
fights.
mean, I'm-
Okay.
No, I didn't mean that kind of knucklehead. I mean like the knuckleheads that want to like get drunk and start fights and start like insulting people. Like, man, are you out here to have a good time, or are you trying to start fights? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Those people are not smart and not humble. They are the bulldozers. I think.
Yes.
Man, it's interesting how like all this stuff kind of ties together. It's like it sounds to me like you're describing you want to hang around with ideal team players. Like that's kind
I
of
was
like
gonna
what
say depends on the team, right? What that team needs, right?
Yeah. Yep. Like if we're just going to a bar and hanging out, like the bar, the bar is pretty low. It's not like we're doing some crazy. It's not like we're going skydiving and we all have to pack each other's parachutes while blindfolded and being attacked by rabid alligators or something. It's a pretty low bar to go and hang out and have fun, have a good time. But like you could still consider that like maybe not a job in that it earns money, but it's like it's a valuable thing to do. And they're like, if somebody's out there ruining the thing that makes it valuable, then it's like they're essentially like ruining the job or something like that. I see it as kind of like a anomalous or similar to that sort of thing. So that's what.
Well, I do got a question then.
What's up?
This is for the panel and hostesses.
Hell yeah.
So,
What you got?
So how can we use this chart as a way to not only, number one, identify what you are, which we kind of already went through, right? But number two, how we can use it to like improve ourselves for daily life, if not workplace life as well.
Mm-hmm. How can we use it? Well, actually, I've got a clip for this, Mrs. Producer. I'm going to go ahead and switch to. Oh wait, I've already got it up. Look at that. Switch to this tab instead. Hey, look at that. All right, so I've made a clip here of Mr. Patrick Lencioni, and this little clip. Let's see if the audio works. Tell me if you guys can hear this.
What you to do is
Can you hear that? Did it come through at all?
turn your colleagues,
You're good.
your team members,
All right,
your
sweet.
family
I gotta
members
turn on my-
into your coaches. They are the best source of coaching and advice you have to become a better team player and more successful in life. Because the day you know that the people around you love you enough to tell you when you're doing something that you need to improve in, everything changes. What you to do is turn your colleagues,
How do I
your
pause
team
it? Dang
members,
it.
your
We do it live. I don't share videos terribly often, but that's I think how we use this little. Oh look, he's got the little chart right over there. Humble, hungry, smart. It's a little bit different, but it's the same fucking thing. Oh damn, I gotta find where I put it. Oh man, there it is. Show this tab instead. Okay, are we back? We've got it. All right, sweet. So your question was, Nate, how do we use this chart to improve ourselves? My answer is we think about each of these characteristics and we employ other people as like accountability buddies. of a certain nature, because like we're going to be our own worst critics, and we're also going to be the people that are like the most blind to our own failures and like things that we need calibration on, right? Like I think I'm awesome, and I also think I'm the worst. But like it doesn't matter what I think when I'm interacting with the world. It matters what the world thinks, insofar as like, does the world want to interact with me? So like I could be thinking all sorts of crazy awesome and crazy terrible things all day long, but if I don't get like some feedback, from like you guys here on the DGen Roundtable, or like my real life friends that are building TV towers and shit with me, or my brother when I'm traveling the States and shit, like if I don't have people that are constantly like giving me calibrated feedback and stuff, then the best I can do is kind of sort of guess if I'm doing better or doing worse and things. So I think that like taking like a look at this stuff, taking a look at like, am I humble? What have I been doing? La di da di da. Like getting a second or third set of eyes on it, in addition to your own self. I think that's how we use it to get better. Do you have thoughts, Mr. Nate? I
Yeah,
see.
I wanted to add on actually, Will, there that you specifically stated calibrated.
Yeah.
Everyone in the world is everyone outside of you is going to give you feedback, right?
Yep.
But sometimes that feedback is their own insecurity and they don't want you to do something, right? Or
Sure.
maybe they want you to do something because they think that what you're doing that works for your life is actually a bad thing,
Mhm.
right? Or maybe it's not part of their religion or something like that. And
Yeah.
so when you think of like, oh, what everybody tells me must be the truth, and that's how I need to start trying to calibrate myself to, you can
Yeah.
start running into the problems real quick of you can't make anyone happy, nor can you make you can't make anyone happy, and no one will ever be happy with you, right? And so it's what next thing you know is you start running into the issue of like, okay, so what's actually true, right?
Uh-huh.
And this is why they have the whole idea of getting the best 5 people around you that you would want to be, because those are the people that you can sit there and say, whatever it is that they're doing, I would like to be like that, right? Or I would like to be maintained by having people like that around, And I think that's where you need to kind of calibrate yourself. Find your circle, Find the people that you can trust their opinion. Because I mean, if I got some Randy off the street saying I'm an asshole, I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
If I got several
Thank you.
people
I
who-
didn't think you noticed. I would tell him.
I appreciate the engagement or
Right.
whatever.
But if I have like the DJ Roundtable be like, hey Nate, you're being kind of an asshole, then it's like, okay, well, let me take a step back. What am I doing wrong here, guys? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Yep.
Then I can actually take that feedback and be like, okay, this is legit to me. This is truth, right?
And I always say, like, if you're in a group that doesn't give you feedback, it's a group that doesn't care about you. Because, like, I think especially for guys, if if you're not insulting each other, like you could say whatever you want, but that's just in our nature. Like if you're not ripping at each other or insulting each other or making fun of our little downfalls and stuff, sometimes we do it jokingly around, but it's feedback, right? Like
Yep.
we can tell each other that stuff. So if people aren't doing that, then you're probably in a group that doesn't really care or doesn't want to give you feedback. And you should always strive for like a group that actually provides that kind of feedback. And sometimes you get that feedback just by people's reactions, if you say certain stuff and it rubs them the wrong way. And I think that's why I kind of like that circle on the right, where like I think we should all have like a combination of all of that, where you can be a charmer, you sometimes have to be a skillful politician, as in you have to know where you're at and how to engage with people within that certain place. Sometimes you have to be a bulldozer. There's some days at work where you can slack off, right? And there's other days where shit needs to get done, right? And you just have to work through it. And there's other days where you're somebody's pawn, or sometimes you're a slacker. You can be a charmer. Sometimes you make fuck ups, right? You're the accidental maker. So I don't think that there's any like true like
you're not
like
set
like
in
like
stone.
like there's like a mold that fits everybody, right? Like we should all have like a little bit of everything.
Well, that's the point of the ideal team maker. And with to your point, Farmer, it's kind of like you've got the ideal maker team mixing up my words here. Ideal team player right here, right? And so from being in that center point, you can then start kind of like moving based on the situation and the individuals from there. And you can kind of move around with everything. You're competent enough with everything here, being humble, smart, and hungry, and you can combine them as well, right? That right there is what I think the ideal team player is all about. Your ability to be able to be competent enough to adjust to the situation and or individual.
Yeah, I agree, and like I all man, Farmer, you hit it on the head when you said that like we're not kind of like molded and stuck in one particular little box. Like it is a pretty constant flow, isn't it? Like obviously we're all striving to be, you know, the ideal team player, much like Arnold Schwarzenegger is trying to be Mr. Universe or like Mr. Olympic
Yeah,
or whatever title that he earned. But like he doesn't look the same then now as he did then,
yeah. So
right?
like,
Like people change, people get better,
yeah,
people get worse. The
I'll make
idea
like
is
a
constant.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
go
make
ahead.
like a quick example. Like on the job I'm at right now, it's a smaller job, right? But like
Yeah.
usually with like the people on my company, the small crew we have, we joke around, we clown a lot. We clown a lot around, make jokes. But sometimes we have job walks, and I have to be part of those job walks, and it's with like people that are part of the metro transportation
Yeah.
company
Big
and some
wigs.
higher ups, right? And yeah, the big wigs and something. And people that work for the state for with the projects getting done for. And when you're there, you behave differently. You have a different decorum. You engage with them more professionally. You're not cussing. You're not joking around. You're actually focused because you don't know these people like that. Like if you're
Mhm.
comfortable with somebody, then you can actually joke around and clown with them. But if you don't know these people, then you should probably engage in a more professional way. And
Yep.
like I said, that you have to know where you're at, and you have to know how to engage with but basically learn to read the crowd. I believe is the saying, right? Learn
Yeah,
to
that's
read the
smart.
crowd and behave accordingly.
The charmer, the
Yeah,
oh man, the smart category. I agree with you 100%, man. Like knowing how to act around whom is probably it's a super duper like high leverage thing. And it's great because it's like this is kind of like how the red pill works. Like, we talk about the red pill from time to time on the show because we're all about like self-improvement and learning the truth about what is real and what is not. Much like, Neo in the Matrix, he's given the option to take the red pill and learn like the cold, cruel reality. And he's given the option to take the blue pill and go back into safe la la land and just be a part of the machine, be part of the cog, and just live about a normal schnormal life, and kind of sort of get fucked by the machines in the process. Um, one of the things that I'm super glad about, like in the smart category, is like it's it's possible to get all this information, right? Like learning about how to be hungry is basically taking action. It's not about like, oh, how can I learn to do this, that, or the other, like how can I get more educated. It's like, no, you just got to do the fucking hard work. And like the humble and the humility thing is like you have to change an inner part of your core human being. But the smart thing is like this is a skill. It's like if you just practice it, you learn the tips and the tricks and stuff, then it's like bam, easy peasy lemon squeezy. And you can learn how to deal with people. So like taking the red pill and learning how the world works, and like learning how to deal with women, learning how to deal with other men, learning how to read body language and do all these stuff. Like there's a whole bunch of books I talked to some of my friends about. There's oh man, what's the one of my friends always brings it up. It's the like miss manners or miss something, mind your manners, or some book about like etiquette and how to be a polite human being in polite society and stuff and all that. It's like a bit antiquated and funny, but like there's guidelines out there that teach us how to deal with people, and like it just takes a little bit of learning and a little bit of application, then boom, everything's like the world's your oyster, man. I fucking love it. All right. Any thoughts real quick on this topic, and then I'm gonna do some chat shout outs and I will roll on into my next question for you guys. Does anyone have anything to tie this all together? Or not tie it together, but any final thoughts? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, sweet. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels. Time for chat shout outs. As you can see, we have this fantastic smiley face. I always have to remember I have to like mirror it. A little heart right here, some balloons and some fancy fireworks for you. Thank you, Mrs. Producer, for doing that for me. We're gonna do some chat shout outs though, and shout out the chats for the people that are coming and joining us. We have our very own from the DGen Roundtable crew, Mr. Agent J. He says aloha. Aloha to you too, good sir. glad to see you. Hope you're having a fantastic day delivering furniture and making.
I'd like to know how his camo is doing.
How his camel's doing?
Yes.
Oh, it's got a broken back.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to get into
I want an
camo
update.
plan for that one.
Yeah, we want an update on the camo.
Yes, an update on the camel. We'll have to ask him about that. He does the Tuesday Telegram calls quite a bit. We'll probably see him over
Yeah,
here.
I used to tune in them, but at the current job I'm at, like it's loud as
Yep.
hell, so I can't hear shit. So
Yeah, man, I feel you, dude. I feel you 100%. Sometimes I'll be up in the towers and it's just like windy as hell, or I'll be like just forgetting what's going on, and it's like, man, I can't listen to
Yeah.
this. And
and
that's
try
the
to
way it
stay
goes.
alive, and try to stay alive at the same time.
Yeah, no falling off allowed. Speaking of falling off, I've got a fellow rigging aficionado in here, Mr. Moon-Pilled Rational Optics. Hey guys, sounds like a good book. I'm almost finished with Patrick Bet-David's book, The Next 5 Moves. Shout out to Patrick Bet-David. He's a good content creator and a good news and information aggregator. But he's got a book called The Next 5 Moves, and Moonpilled is almost finished with it. I highly recommend, Mr. Moonpilled Rational Optics, that you read this book, The Ideal Team Player. And like realistically, like you could probably just look up the synopsis and things and get the idea. But if you want some motivation and you want some good storytelling, there's some fantastic storytelling in the beginning of the book, which we have covered quite thoroughly. And that covers it for chat shoutouts. So making sure there's no crazy cool comments that I want to touch on. Other than
there was just the comments about IPAs and whiskey.
Yep.
Good stuff. Yep. But speaking of humble, which there used to be a beer which was anything but humble. It was called Arrogant Bastard. It was an IPA that was, after it was made, it was aged in a whiskey cask. I haven't been able to find that son of a bitch lately. That was one of my favorite IPAs. Arrogant Bastard had a demon horn on the front, and it had a hint of whiskey, because after they brewed it, they would age it in a barrel of whiskey. They would have it sit there, so it would soak up the flavor of the whiskey.
That's malty as all hell, bro.
It was absolutely delicious, but I have not found it lately.
It's been a couple years. Do you think?
Huh?
Was it 8%?
8%. It might have been. Like this one right here that I'm drinking is 8%. This is where's it at? Like a double IPA. So yeah, I generally like our beers that have a little bit more kick.
Yeah, more of that alcohol flavor.
Yeah. So
yeah. Yep.
Okay.
None of that humble beer.
I don't know. I'm more of a, I like stouts. I like the darker beers. They do have the kick, but man, I could never get on the IPA train. That was not my jam, bro. To each their own.
It's either that or vodka for me. So
I'm total girl. I drink fruity, like hard mics and stuff when it comes to beer. Other than that, I pretty much hate beer. So
no, some of that stuff is actually stronger than beer. Like you start looking at these hard lemonades and hard iced tea, they're like 6-7%. And like if you look at your traditional beer, it's about 5%. So a lot of the stuff that people think it's fruity, like if you drink enough of it, it'll creep up on you real quick.
Yeah, I think the mic's harder, like they're harder alcohol.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
but anyway, sorry, Will. I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in there on our beer preferences.
No, that's okay. I'm actually scrolling through and seeing that we've covered most of these questions. So I'm gonna do one final fun little question here. What was your guys' favorite part of the book? And then this will be our final question, and then we'll move to closing shortly thereafter. Unless Nate, I see you have starred one of them as well. Do you want to focus on that one, or are we set to? I'm ready to do a cool little closeout because we have beat this camel to death.
We have. So the only idea that I was thinking about was and this is a little bit of a kind of an add-on to what we already talked about, but it's kind of like the team dynamics, right? So for where you're working currently, right? How are you going to take this information and try to utilize it to further better your work with the people that you're currently working with?
There are some cool there's some cool things that he references at the end of the audiobook. I don't know, I didn't read the actual physical book, but he talks about like there's these cool little workshops that you can do on his website, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head.
No, I don't mean that. I mean like you yourself. How are you going to utilize that to interact with the people you're working with?
Oh, you mean like addressing my flaw and things?
Yeah, yeah. And then how can you improve yourself to where you're working right now with the teammates that you're working with? How can you improve yourself to better work with them
So
using
to
the book?
Yeah, so to better work with them is I could always give better feedback to help them, and then to help, like, as far as helping, so like it, big picture thing, right? Assuming that everybody needs to be an ideal player, right? I'm one small part of that, so I need to fix myself first. So like I had told you guys, like the thing that I am like least strong in is hunger. So I could just literally just work more, work harder. I mean, it's not difficult. I don't mind doing it. It's just not my like, it's not the thing that I like to do. It's not the thing that I enjoy. I'm capable of doing it and I don't mind doing it. But like that's usually the first one to go if I have a preference. So like the solution for that is like what he was saying in the book, is to just basically like ask around, say like, hey, what needs to be done? Does this, like, what kind of rigging are we going to do tomorrow? What's the plan of the day? What are the like, if we can only do 4 things today, what are those 4 things and in what order do you want them done? So like I could just take more charge, do more leadership stuff around the site. As far as like other things, like, for this DGen Roundtable podcast, like talking to you guys, like saying, hey, who's going to hop on this show at this time? Like, who's going to be where? Who's going to be doing this thing? Like, what are some news articles that I can look up and and talk about on the next Sunday show? Or like, what's the next book that we're going to review, and like how much and like what type of hosting do I have to do? Like, those are some things that I could do to account for the hungry part of the job and things. So that's something that I would do. What about you, Mr. Nate? And then we'll toss it over to Mr. Farmer after that.
Well, one of the things that I definitely need to work on is I need to assume that people's intentions when they're communicating with me is not necessarily as negative as I would automatically assume,
Okay.
Perhaps uh when people are communicating with me, it's not necessarily that they're trying to get something out of me, but they're legitimately just asking questions, right?
Hmm.
And when you start kind of moving out of a negative space, or at least if you're around people where you can trust that them questioning you or talking to you in certain ways is not inherently negative, right?
Hmm.
Then that opens up a whole new almost reality of living that would not be normal otherwise, because usually when you come across, or at least from my lifestyle, right, when I come across people just kind of in a daily life, generally when they start asking me questions about things, they're trying to get something out of me, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, my automatic response kind of pops up as like, okay, what do you want? You know?
Yeah.
And especially with where I live, it's not as truthful. It's more like they beat around the bush 1,000 times a Sunday, and I don't quite get. Even when I straight up have to say, "Hey, what do you want?" to their face, then they're like, "Oh, well, you're being rude. Why would you
Yeah.
do that?" And it's
You got to
like,
get out of
dude,
Minnesota, bro.
yeah,
Break out of
yeah,
the Minnesota mindset.
yeah, right. That's the thing. So I would say try to not be. For me, it's going to be trying to not be as negative thinking
Hmm.
about people's interactions. Try to be more patient
Yep.
with people's interactions, right? Because that's what we social beings are, right? Us little social naked monkeys over here.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of people who just straight up like to talk, and in talking they'll ask you these silly little questions that in my mind is like, okay, you're wasting my time. I'm trying to go do something, you
Yep.
know.
Yep. You're
But
hungry. The bulldozer's revving up, bro.
yeah, yeah. See, that's me, right? I'm like, I'm trying to do
The
something, right?
lovable slackers trying to throw you off.
Yep.
But
Uh,
sometimes, when it comes to humans, though, just listening to them and have them just kind of rant at you for a little while, you have done something. And even though for you personally, you're like, I'm trying to do something, right?
mhm.
You have helped this person just feel better in their life in general.
Yeah,
You
like
know,
validating them, right?
validating. Thank you. That's a really good way to put that. Yes, and that's a good way. Like, not only can I feel good about that, right? But that is a good way to help others, and it is helping others, right? Now, if you have someone who's constantly coming to you day in and day out and it's disturbing your work, now you've got a problem. That's the pendulum over to the other side, right?
bro, I just had a like a fucking a light
Yo,
bulb
share it,
moment.
man. Share it.
It's called paying attention, because you're literally paying them in your attention, and that's like the validation thing. It's like you are giving them, you're literally in a transaction. Like, instead of paying money, paying time, paying whatever, like paying attention. Like, hey, pay attention, give me this resource, and it's like that's the thing, that's the validation. Like, it just blew my mind. Like, I've always said the phrase pay attention, or I've heard that mentioned in this English language and stuff, and it's just now like it's just now clicking that it's like, oh yeah, it's literally a payment. It's
It
literally
is.
like someone giving someone else something valuable when you have like a good conversation with someone, or when you let them like to like have a oh man, in one of my friend groups, like, forgive the faux pas here, but we call it like an autism barfing moment, whenever we just like talk on and on about something that we know a lot about. Sorry for the autistic folks out there, I'm not trying to make fun of you, it's just like a descriptive
How
term for like
dare you?
when we talk a lot about something that like we're really passionate about, and other people like listen, and they ask good questions, and they're interested, and they pay that attention, like it makes you feel good. And so like you're absolutely right, Nate. It's important to give people that you value, like to pay them in attention, and make them feel better and stuff. So good point, bro. I like that. Farmer, was that the end of your thought, Nate? Did I cut you off there? Okay, sweet. Farmer
All right.
Jay,
So
what do
I guess I guess I'll go into the topic. We're talking about how we plan to use what we learned, right? Uh,
Mhm.
I'll I'll go into the humble part, and then into what kind of first I'll go into Will said, like learning to get feedback, right? Me
Mhm.
particularly, for me, I need to learn to give better feedback to my apprentices. I have two apprentices currently on the job, right? And I need to learn how to communicate better with him, like what they're doing correctly and what they're doing incorrectly, and so they can build on those skills, right? Because at some point they're going to be the next generation of journeymen, right?
Yep.
Uh, one of them's a young lady, one of them's a young man, right? But they're the ones that are gonna be in my position later on in their career. So I need to do like a better job of it's my responsibility as as the person that's running them, to put them in a place to succeed, right? You're
Yeah.
doing this correctly, you're doing that incorrectly. And as far as like another thing about being humble, it's actually something I like to practice. At the current job I'm at, there's another journeyman that's so there's two apprentices, a journeyman, and then I'm running the crew, right? So the journeyman that's under me, he's a lot more experienced than me. He's very close to retirement. But I'm just because I get to call the shots, right? That doesn't mean this man has about 20 years more experience than I do. So I should take his opinion into account. That should be very, to me, it's very important. So whenever I have an idea or something, I like to run it by him. He has a lot more experience than him. It's not up to him to make the call, right? That doesn't mean I
Mhm.
need to exclude him. He has
Yeah.
a lot more experience than I do.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask him, "Hey," and ask for his input. I got this idea. I got this idea. What do you think? You
Yeah.
or if he comes up with a different idea, and like it's better than what I came up with, I'm like, okay, let's run with that. Like
Mhm.
sometimes you have to understand to be humble. Like if you don't have specialty in a certain subject, look for somebody who does. If somebody's done this 20 times and this is about your second time you're doing it, then look to them for their knowledge, what they have, like just because you're in charge, that doesn't mean that you can't take input from other people.
Absolutely right, bro. That reminds me a lot of like a wise lieutenant listening to their salty old like master sergeant or first sergeant or whatever. It's like, just because the lieutenant outranks the master sergeant, like you'd be stupid to not listen to that man, and then make a decision, or whatever the heck. That's super wise, bro. I like that you
Yeah,
touched on that humility thing.
yeah, he might have something that save you, like you can do it in half the time if you listen to his idea. Oh, yeah, that actually works. Let's do that instead.
Hell
Fuck
yeah,
my
bro.
stupid idea. Your
Yep.
idea is better. Let's go with that.
I like it. Mrs. McGettit, I have not forgotten about you. What do you think? But Nate, how did you phrase the question? What is it that you're going to do? What are some things that you can implement to try and make these things come to fruition? Something like that.
Okay, so because I know you're asking this specifically for Mrs. McGettit. I'll ask her
Yes.
directly since I know what she does. How would babe? How would you use this book and the information in it to better deal with the people that you're dealing with online? Which a lot of these people are not the normal types that you would see out in daily life. How would you use this information?
Well, for me, it really depends on if these people want any kind of feedback or if they want to, change certain aspects about themselves. The hard truth of the matter is there are some people who don't. They just aren't interested. And that's fine. I mean, that's on them if they they don't necessarily have to be on a team that would require those things, kind of like they mentioned in the book. If some of these people don't have hunger, they just would try to help them get a different job. But the examples that they use in the book is pretty much exactly what I would do. I have a little chat with some friends for like accountability, because I just needed it for myself. So I asked them, would you guys be willing to do this? And of course you could use it for whatever you need as well. And they were all on board. So we've been doing that. And whenever they need something, just very gentle pushes towards whatever that may be. And I would say the same concepts would apply here. In the communities that I'm in, I have done a little bit of I would say the humility part, because a lot of people want to approach aggressively, because in the open market, the things that I do can, through the channels, they can affect a person's ability to make money in some ways, because it can hurt or help. My group, that's what it basically does.
Mhm.
So if they feel like they're losing money because of whatever's going on, they tend to come in very aggressive or hostile. And I mentioned this in one of our previous book clubs, but what I did was I put down a boundary with them early on. I said, we're going to treat each other with respect, or we're not going to talk. And most people respond very well to that. And then but like I said, some people don't. And it really depends on if they want to hear that feedback. If they're open to it, then you can dive right into these things like, hey, I think you're missing a little bit of the humility side in here. And they mentioned this near the end of the book where they use that exact feedback with somebody. You told us to let you know if we see it. So I think, I'm not totally sure if maybe I missed the question on this one, but that's kind of where I'm leaning.
So the number one thing that you seem to be struggling in, per your words, was the remind me, Will.
Hunger?
Mind blank. The
Humble, hungry, smart.
Yeah, hungry. The hungry part.
Yeah.
So that was a mind blank. So yeah, how would you use this book to try and become more like, say, hungry in your life and in your work life online?
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I totally misunderstood. Either that, or there's like more than one part to this question, but a couple different ways.
It was a good answer nonetheless, but yeah.
For sure. For me, I think it's not that I don't have that hunger, that desire to do more or improve more, but I tend to live more in a mindset of, and this goes back to one of our other books, I want to be left alone, just to do my thing. And I can't remember which book this was, but they said the more you want to be left alone, the more they're not going to leave you alone. So with that coming into play, it's like, okay, well, I guess I never really considered that. I didn't really think about it, but they're not wrong. So for me, it would be kind of instead of avoiding trying to rise through the ranks or pursue things, it's more of something that I'm going to have to kind of open up to that a little more, be willing to make that change, kind of like what I was just saying. If somebody's not willing, there's no point in pushing for it, because
she doesn't need to, Nate. She has a real man in her life.
Yeah, see, I was about to say here, what you could do, a little suggestion is you could simply walk up to me and ask me what I would do in this situation.
Ooh.
I mean, we are opposites.
No, but I think sometimes it's in a relationship, it's a nice balance that if somebody's, I don't think it's a good mix if both individuals are have that drive and determination. And I think it takes away from the relationship. Like you said, there has to be one person's this and the other person's that, right? And together it makes a good team.
Yep. Yeah, very true, Farmer. I think that's a very good point, because we get a lot of people, at least in America nowadays, where both both heads of the household, both wife and husband. I'm sorry, I'm totally forgetting the word. Are doing like career jobs, and then babies get stuck in daycares, and then it's like, okay, well, now you have that situation to deal with. So that's a very good point. But I guess I'm not saying like, oh, I'm gonna go full blown into like, I need to be the best now, and I'm gonna pursue all these crazy goals, but just a little bit more of opening up to that, I think would be helpful for me personally, because I in the past I've just totally shied away from it. I don't want to do it. Like when it came to my Pokemon communities, when I was still selling things fairly actively, it's something that I stopped doing. Not because I couldn't, not because I was like bad at it. I wasn't great at it either, but I wasn't bad at all. It was just like not really something that interested me. And I just pulled out of doing that basically entirely because it was competitive and I don't like competing with other people. And then after that, it was just like, no, I don't want to do it because I don't want to deal with basically butting heads with people all the time. All these other people who want to make money as well. I'm in the position where I'm like, I'm happy to make a little bit, but they're in the position where like they want it all. And so they're going to fight anybody else who they see as competition. So just not shying away from that as much as I had in the past, I think would be helpful for me. But I'm never going to be like Nate, where I'm like, I need to do all of these crazy things.
Nah,
That's
I don't.
his part.
Yeah, I don't think if you did that, Nate would like you as much. Like when you start doing that, like you start getting these aggressive characteristics, and it's like, do you want two people that butt heads like that in the same household?
Yeah, I
wholeheartedly
Nate,
kind of put a
Nate
cap
needs
on
to
this
work
one,
harder.
right?
Nate needs to work harder and get more money.
Yeah, that's what it is. To put a cap on this, right? Let's go ahead and look at this as like the ideal teammate or teamwork situation, right? Where it's like she can work on, say, trying to work harder in initializing things and like doing more work and things like that, right? Well, okay, so I'm already out here running around doing a whole bunch of different things. If she doesn't have a ton of desire to go out and do a whole bunch of different things like me, because I'm just a freaking bulldozer over here, just bull in a china shop, running around. Let's go, right? Let's go do things, right? If she's not that way, but she's good and she has enough of that where she is the ideal team player, then what she's able to do is she's able to help focus me on a certain thing, the one thing, right? She's able to help focus me on that and be like, hey, Nate, I know you're over there doing like 2 other things, but can you help me focus on this one thing? Oh yeah, let me go back to this one now. So I think that right there is what that would be a very strong relationship, and this is why the ideal team player is really good for relationships, because of things like that. We help each other out.
Yep. And you can get calibrated feedback from the person that like literally cares enough about you to choose to spend the rest of their life hanging around with you. I like it. This is a good point for us to put a pin in this conversation and everything. And we're going to go ahead and do one final little round of chat shoutouts. I see that there's been another addition here. So Mrs. Producer, if you wouldn't mind pulling up our first one here from Mr. Taylor, or maybe it's Mrs. Taylor, I don't know, from this good friend Taylor of ours. It has been said that we're in the attention economy right now with monetized social media impression. You're absolutely right, Mr. Taylor. This is to refer back to when we were talking about the paying of attention and like attention being like a cost value. This is actually something that I wrote about in my little blog/book thing that you guys can find on bit.ly/the ledger must balance. I wrote a little series of stories talking about the different types of ways that we pay for different things, how we might trade money for time, or we might trade time for attention, or we might trade attention for resources, or we might trade resources for money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can find that at bit.ly/the ledger must balance. So that's where that little book is. And then the next comment that we have here is from Mr. Axis Alive himself. Teamwork makes the dream work. You are fucking A right, bro. Teamwork does make the dream work. And being surrounded by ideal team players is the way to go. For those of you who want to become an ideal team player, you guys can find this book on Audible. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it in any bookstore near you. It sounds like I'm doing a pitch, but really, I just want everybody around me to be ideal team players. I want the world to be full of ideal team players. And so I can be surrounded by excellence, so I never have to worry about working. And I can continue to be lazy, and life will be excellent and super fun and fantastic. On that note, we're going to go ahead and do our final show wrap up. So, starting with my fantastic co-host, Mrs. McGettit. Can you go ahead and tell the folks at home where can they find you and what do they have to look forward to in the near future?
Okay, so if you want to talk to me for whatever weird oddball reason that you would have that desire, I can be found in the DGen Roundtable Telegram. If you look directly to, I guess from my side, it might not be the side you're looking at it, but to my left, there is a little QR code right here. Will is trying to point to it. Farmer, would you mind pointing just straight down for a sec? There we go. Perfect. Scan that guy. That'll get you into our Telegram. If you are like me and you don't like QR codes because for whatever reason those little things bug me, there are 2 different links in the description that will take you directly to our Telegram. And yeah, go ahead, join that. And if you do want to talk, I'm there. So are the rest of us. As for what we've got coming up, we have our usual show. Oh, no. I think we're still doing the quarter 3 thesis for this Sunday.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
Thank you, Farmer. That is fantastic. I don't remember what
perfect.
we're doing on Sunday, but we are doing a Sunday show. So you guys can catch us there at 8 o'clock Eastern.
For sure.
At the same spot.
It was supposed to be the quarter 3 thesis, but I'm not sure because I know that got pushed back last week. We were going to do it last week, but then Trump got shot, so we wanted to talk about that. I think we're doing it this weekend instead.
Trump wasn't a team player, so they took some shots.
Oh, yep. They not the shooters team.
He wasn't a team.
And
player.
then I think we do have a special guest lined up for this next Wednesday, and I will I'll let Nate speak more about that because he should have those details. Next, we are going over to Farmer, right, Will?
Sure. Farmer, where can the folks find you and what do you got going on in the near future, my friend?
You can find me reading books to the local homeless under the freeway and on the Telegram chat room that Miss McGettit just mentioned. Other than that, I don't really have any socials or stuff. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much the only socials I have are Telegram and YouTube. So if for some reason you want to ask me something, I'll be in Telegram and you'll probably get a response in a meme.
Yep, 100%. Can confirm, Mr. Farmer J. Thank you for joining us again, by the way. We love having you on these book clubs, broski.
Favorite part of the week for me.
Hell yeah, bro. For the folks at home who want to if they want to get more of this cat, you can find him here 8 o'clock Eastern on Friday. Same with the rest of us. We do this book club, whether it's me hosting or Zenith hosting or some other gentleman or lady hosting. We'll see what we got going on in the near future, but that's what's going on with that. So, Mr. Nate McGettit, where can the folks find you and what do you have going on in the near future, broski?
Yes, I am the ascending man, ascending the crypto world. Yeah, right there. Nate McGettit from the DGen Roundtable. And yes, what was that?
I'm dropping your link.
Oh, you're getting all never mind. So yeah, we do have Rags to Riches coming up Wednesday, right? And to answer Centurion's question here, I do believe it is the quarter 3 thesis this Sunday, which is a huge show. It's gonna, quite frankly, there's a lot of research put into it. I know Jay and especially Zenith have been going haywire, making sure that it's going to be an absolutely fantastic show. So make sure you tune in this Sunday because that's going to be a really big one. And then, of course, Rags to Riches, Brandon, he's going to be on Wednesday's show, special guest and awesome. I can't wait to talk to him, man. He's like space brain, like super brain. It's crazy. Like the wrinkliest of wrinkle brains. You know what I mean?
The wrinkliest of wrinkle brains.
But with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Will to close us out. Make sure you get into, if you love freedom of speech, get into our Telegram and talk away in there.
And memes.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things in there, but I'm telling you what, like we are starting to hit this point where it's going to be nothing but green candles for quite a while. We're going to start heading into the euphoria stage of the crypto bull market. And quite frankly, it's really easy for you to make mistakes. We're able to bring you back down to earth in this community here if you decide you're going to go absolutely wild and crazy. So it might be good for your own health. With that being said, though, again, I'm going to hand it over to our host, Will Stevenson. Take us out.
Thank you, sir. I think I'm gonna try something that's never been done before, and I'm not sure if this is what the Q3 thesis is, but I've got a list of things that we're going to be covering on Sunday's shows. So I'll give you guys a bit of a teaser, so that way you can have something to look forward to. So we're going to be talking about Tether, picking up former Chainalysis chief economist Philip Gladwell. We're going to be talking about Ethereum ETFs and them starting on the 23rd of July. The Mt. Gox movement causing short-term panic, Trump picking pro-crypto running mate. We're going to talk about that running mate speaking about Gary Gensler, and also Jerome Powell speaking at the Economic Club, and we're going to be talking about all this crazy CloudStrike bullshit that's going on, where everyone lost internet, and how it's nice to be decentralized, and the whole world loses internet, but Pulse chain users unaffected. So so those are some of the things that we're going to be talking about. I don't know if that's what the Q3 thesis is. I'm not entirely sure, but that's what we're going to be talking about this Sunday. It's going to be me, it's going to be Agent J, and it's going to be Brendan. Nate, are you going to be joining us for the Sunday one, you think?
I believe I'll be able to join. Still
Okay.
not 100% on that yet, but
All right.
more than likely, yes.
Standing by. Love to hear it. Excellent. All right. So for the folks at home who do not know, and also thank you, Mr. or Miss. Oh, Miss Jemmy, our favorite Pulse Chain grandma. Aloha. It's nice to see and hear from you. That is fantastic. Hope you're doing well down there in South or Central America. Forgive me, I can never remember the place that you are from, but it is good to see our grandma Jemmy down there hanging out. And thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Very interesting discussion. Enjoying the stream. We love having you here, Jemmy. Wouldn't be the same without you. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Will Stevenson. You guys can find me in this link right down here below, bit.ly/hex_meetup. If you're a Hexican and you want to meet other Hexicans, what you need to do is hop on into this little, I guess I could drop the link. That would be the correct thing to do. But anyways, bit.ly/hex meetup is a little Telegram group that I made for crypto people, or really just anybody, to go around and meet each other and have real cool, real life interactions and human being like meetings and shaking hands, kissing babies, all that good stuff. I think one of the most powerful things that a person can do in the cryptosphere is go out and meet other cryptocurrency people and share stories, build relationships, like go out and it's kind of like touching grass, but with people, because we spend a lot of our time online and hanging out and looking at people, watching streams, listening to folks. And it's way better to have real life friends that you can bond over a beer, or perhaps you can throw a boomerang at a kangaroo together, or you can do a race down the strip at Las Vegas, or I don't know, maybe jump out of an airplane, or perhaps knit some new socks. I don't know, whatever you people like. I personally like throwing axes and adventuring and things. So go to bit.ly/hex_meetup. That will take you directly to the Start Here page, which will explain to you how to use the Telegram to the most maximal effectiveness. And that's where you can find me. I chill out in there. I also chill out in the DGen Roundtable community. My favorite place is the meme chat room. So last night, I was just spamming the chat with memes because I was on a meme dump vendor.
Bro,
so
you were hilarious.
overload.
Hell, I went through that last night too.
Oh, you guys were both talking at the same time. Nate, what was that?
Oh, and just to finish here. Yeah, you went wild in there, and I went through them all. That was crazy, bro.
I was gonna say, every time I go through that meme chat, it's like a meme overload, And me, I love me some memes. You all know that. So it's like, ooh, I'm gonna steal this one and this one and this one. I'm stealing all of them.
Steal as many as you like. I love to hear it. So yeah, guys, go check out the meme chats. I just share a whole bunch of irrelevant and terrible things. It's probably not a safe place for your family. It's probably not a safe place for your girlfriend. It's probably not a safe place for your grandma, but you can bring the Pope. The Pope can come and check it out, and he'll have a good laugh with you. You guys can find me again at will.pls.fyi. That's the rest of my socials. If you want to check out any of the other things that I did, that's my little Pulse domain link tree, will.pls.fyi. Other than that, we want to thank you guys. As Agent J always says, we want to thank you for spending your valuable time here with us in the DGen Roundtable community. We know that time is your most valuable asset, and we super duper appreciate you choosing to spend it with us. Whether you're catching us live or you're watching us on the replay, you guys are the reason that we do this. Mrs. Producer, go ahead and get that trigger finger, because you already know what time it is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, I want to make sure to remind you all to remember to degen responsibly.